Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. There is a sacred trust between a country and its leader, between a president and the people he leads. When a leader violates that trust, the people from whom he derives his power have the inalienable right to remove him. You may agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. It's not meant to be political. Whatever the context, when you let things slide one after another, the foundation deteriorates. Even water sliding down a rock begins to wear at it and break it down. And like that rock, our very existence is in jeopardy. Barack Obama has put us in that jeopardy yet again. The latest, exchanging a man whose own platoon soldiers call a deserter, who voluntarily left his unit during combat, in itself a death-eligible crime, for 5 of the worst Taliban terrorists in Gitmo. Obama sends out Old Faithful Susan Rice to say this of Bo Bergdahl.
He served the United States with honor and distinction.
Really? Even the White House had to respin that. Now, Susan, isn't English your first language? Weren't you briefed on what to say? And not for nothing, don't you know that those Sunday morning talk shows are a danger zone for you? But then again, that despicable video lie got you moved up to National Security Advisor. And ironically, the reason for the trade?
What we did was ensure that, as always, the United States doesn't leave a man or a woman on the battlefield.
Pray tell, Susan, is it okay to leave some behind? The trade surprised even Congress.
It comes with some surprise and dismay that the transfers went ahead with no consultation, totally not following the law.
And that's a Democrat. Enter our president.
We had a prisoner of war whose health had deteriorated, and we were deeply concerned about, and we saw an opportunity and we seized it, and I make no apologies for that.
But when key senators didn't buy the ill excuse, a new narrative emerged. The Taliban would kill Bergdahl if you followed U.S. law and told Congress. Seriously? Mr. President, my sources tell me that you knew Bergdahl's location for months. Why didn't you send in SEAL Team 6? It would have made another great photo op. Why didn't you send in those drones? Could it be, Mr. President, he was your excuse to release 5 Taliban terrorists from Gitmo? Those 5 men, the worst of the worst. Some wanted by the UN for mass murders, killing thousands, Al-Qaeda connected. These are the guys who behead their enemies, including children. They hate America and everything we stand for. And you released them, knowing many returned to the battlefield because Arab country Qatar assured you that they do not pose a threat to us? And you're good with that? You buy it? You think 12 years in Gitmo has softened their resolve to kill us? Mr. President, you didn't just release them, you unleashed them. And you alone will be responsible for the hell that will be unleashed on us. You have teed us up for death and destruction. And don't give me this hogwash that they're prisoners of war who have to be freed when we leave Afghanistan. They are not prisoners of war. The Taliban is not a country. They are enemy combatants who can be held indefinitely and should have been tried for their crimes. And as much as you want to take terms like Islamic extremist and jihad out of our lexicon, the war on terror is far from over. You didn't have to release them. And I don't give a damn whether you try them at Gitmo, in a military tribunal, or in a federal court. United States attorneys have prosecuted these dirtbags and convicted them time and again. Here's the bottom line. You negotiated with terrorists. You broke the very law that you signed. You have shown terrorists that they can win concessions by kidnapping Americans. In the history of this country, we have never traded mass murderers for a deserter. My father and grandfather fought in World War II. Ironically, you go to Normandy 70 years later, where my grandfather was injured, and make like you respect the military. You call yourself a commander-in-chief. But what commander-in-chief doesn't support a surge but sends in 40,000 troops anyway? What commander-in-chief reduces benefits to those in the military, closes the Veterans War Memorial, reduces the Army to pre-World War II levels, knowingly allows veterans to die in our hospitals, while replenishing the enemy in a time of war? Mr. President, you are destroying this country. You have diminished us on the world stage. You have trampled on the very laws that you swore to uphold. You are not a true commander-in-chief. We've impeached a president for lying about sex with an intern. Your actions, far more egregious, demand impeachment. And that's my open. With me now, former federal prosecutor and author of Faithless Execution, Building the Political Case for Obama's Impeachment, Andrew McCarthy. Good evening, Andrew.
Hi, Jeanine. How are you?
Fine. The release of high-level Taliban for someone like Bergdahl, might that be an impeachable offense?
Yeah, I think it's about as shocking a dereliction of duty on the part of the commander-in-chief as you can imagine. The commander-in-chief of our armed forces is one of the things he's most responsible for is force protection. We've taken 5 of their most experienced, most implacably anti-American chief terrorists and given them back to the Taliban at a time when they're still on the battlefield trying to kill our men and women in harm's way. It's hard to wrap your brain around how he could do such a thing.
Well, you know, Andy, one of the things that I just talked about was the fact that these are enemy combatants and not prisoners of war, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, it's true that if we were at the end of the war, if the war was entirely over, you can't detain people any longer. But even by his own timetable, we're staying for 2 more years. So this business about, you know, you can't leave anyone behind. Who's leaving? Well, we're not leaving. Al-Qaeda's not leaving.
It is a global war on terror, to be honest with you. It's not just about Afghanistan, correct?
That's exactly. And these, talking about the global war on terror, you're quite right. These are some of the top jihadists. These are not like low-level Afghan natives. These are among the leaders of the global jihad.
And what makes him think that we can rely on Qatar to make sure that they don't pose a threat to us?
Well, that's preposterous. Qatar is one of the, as far as countries that support Islamic supremacism, they're at the top of the list. They're the hospitable home of the Taliban's government in exile, government in waiting. They've set up shop in Qatar. Qatar is also the headquarters of Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi, who's the top jurist of the Muslim Brotherhood, the guy who issued a fatwa in 2004 calling for the killing of American troops in Iraq.
You know, Andy, in your book, Faithless Execution, you outline many examples of the president's violations that could lead to articles of impeachment. Give us a few examples.
Well, I think the most clear one, Jeanine, is the fact that he won't faithfully execute the law, which is really the president's most important job on the domestic side. Even the president's most ardent admirers, I think, have to admit that he doesn't follow statutes. He routinely rewrites them, amends them, selectively enforces them.
As in Obamacare, you know,
yes.
To forget what it says, we'll just change it as we go
along.
along.
I think it was about 30 times, but that was at 9 o'clock this morning. I haven't checked again since then. But the other thing, Jeanine, just if I could take one act, which I think says it all, Benghazi is something that I would take back to the war that the president started without authorization or provocation in Libya. It was waged under false pretenses. He was supposed to be protecting civilians. He waged it against Gaddafi's regime. It was done knowing that that would empower Islamic supremacists in eastern Libya. They follow that up by not providing force protection or any protection for the people who are serving for us in dangerous places like Benghazi, where they're mysteriously assigned. Shockingly, he does not come to the aid of Americans when they're under terrorist siege on September 11th. And they follow that up with this cockamamie video, the video did it fraud. And the cherry on top of that is they trump up a prosecution against the video producer.
Right. He's the only one in jail. Nobody's been arrested.
Right.
Andy, look, you've prosecuted these people. We know each other. You're a U.S. attorney,
right.
An assistant U.S. attorney. I mean, what do you think? I mean, we could have prosecuted these guys. We didn't even have to let them go. You guys have prosecuted some of these guys in federal civilian court. Yeah,
well, for sure, Jeanine, under the laws of war, they can be detained. I don't know what the evidence is against them in terms of what can you prove in court, because with respect to a lot of these guys who have been detained but not charged, they're looking at evidence that's intelligence, and to prove it in court you'd have to give up methods and sources.
Well,
but you can detain
you know what,
them.
Andy? I can't believe that there isn't a U.S. attorney out there who can separate classified for unclassified information and make a case against these guys. If indeed they're charged with killing thousands, then we should be able to make a case against them.
But as you pointed out, we don't have to. We can detain them till the end of hostilities. We can hold them. Andrew
McCarthy, it's always good to see you. Faithless Execution. Good luck with your book.
Thanks, Jeanine.
All right. And coming up, new details tonight about the Taliban 5, who are now freed terrorists and who they really are. And vote in tonight's Insta poll. Why did the president trade Bergdahl for 5 Taliban terrorists? Facebook or tweet me at Judge Jeanine.